So let's take this one step further and save the user's preferences locally. So if the user is in dark mode, closes the app and reopens it, it'll remain in dark mode. So to help us achieve that, we can use a really helpful package, SharedPreferences, which will help us with persistent storage for simple data, which is exactly what we want in this project. So let's get this set up. So the first step is we need to install SharedPreferences into the project. So firstly, grab the dependency here, and then in the Flutter project in pubspec.yaml, we'll add in the dependency, run pubget, and now we should have access to SharedPreferences. Under themes, create a new Dart file, name this theme preferences, and now create a new class, theme preferences. And this class will house two simple methods, one to save the theme preferences locally and the other to get the theme preferences. So let's set that up. First method is to save theme. And now we can use SharedPreferences to save our theme. The first step is we need to get an instance of SharedPreferences. I'll type SharedPreferences, import the library, and to get an instance of SharedPreferences we can just use the getInstance method, and we'll return that into a variable. Now if we look at that method, getInstance, it will return a future. And therefore we need to add the await keyword because we're awaiting a future. And because we're dealing with a future in this method, we need to add the async keyword here. Okay, cool. So now we can use prefs. And now if you press dot on prefs here, we've got access to a whole lot of methods to set and get simple data. So in this case, we want to set a bool, and we need to create a key which is of type string. So I'll call this isDark, and now we need to save the value. So in this method, let's pass in the value that it should be saved as, required bool isDark. So whatever the caller passes in, we'll set that here. Okay, cool. So very simple. We just get an instance of SharedPreferences. This is a future, so we need to use the await keyword, and then we can use that variable to set the bool with a key. So now we've set that to true or false depending on what's passed in. And lastly, I'm going to add the static keyword to make this a static method. So going to our settings page, and we'll continue using provider because that'll update our theme quickly while we're running the app. We'll also save our preferences locally. So we can type in theme preferences dot save theme, and here we can pass in is switched directly. So if we go back to our theme preferences, Control B to jump back, we now call this method which will get an instance of SharedPreferences. When we have that instance, it'll then call this method setBool and save this with a key isDark. Okay, cool. So the next thing we need to do is to get the theme. So we'll create a new method called getTheme. And the first step is we need to get an instance of SharedPreferences again. So I'll just copy this and paste this here. And we need to make this method asynchronous. So I'll add the async keyword here. And now prefs, instead of setting a bool, we want to get bool. And we'll type in isDark. So we're using the same key. So this must be exactly the same. Now there is a chance that the user has not yet set a theme, in which case this would return null. So we need to return a value. So to avoid a null error, type in 2 question marks, and then we can just return false by default. So if this is null, then we'll return false. So we want it to be able to return a bool, but we have an error here because this should be a future. So let's put bool in angle bracket, so return a future, and now we can use the return keyword here. So this method, once we get the value, will return it in a future, and I'll also make this static. In the next video, we'll set up a future builder so we can work with our SharedPreferences package.